Welcome. Today we're diving into the Indo-Pacific. It's really become the center stage for global power dynamics in this century.
Absolutely. And there's a contest playing out there, maybe less visible than diplomacy, but incredibly important, the race for naval power.
Exactly. And the big question we're tackling, based on some really insightful analysis we've looked at, is can the Indian Navy actually counter China's growing strength in that region?
It's a critical question because, something like 90% of global trade goes by sea. Whoever influences those sea lanes has enormous leverage.
And India's geography. I mean, it sits right there overlooking the Indian Ocean, a huge advantage, you'd think.
Geographically, yes. It's prime real estate, as you said. But location isn't everything in naval terms. You need the hardware, the capability.
Which brings us to China. The sources we reviewed really highlight the speed and scale of their naval buildup.
It's been, frankly, astonishing over the last 20 years. The People's Liberation Army Navy, the plan, is now the world's largest by ship count.
Largest by number, wow.
Yeah.
That's a pace we haven't seen in a long time.
Not in peacetime, certainly. And it's not just numbers. They're launching very capable ships.
Like the aircraft carriers.
Precisely. They've got the Liaoning, the Shandong, and now the Fujian, which is technologically very advanced. That signals ambition far beyond just the South China Sea.
Right, a true blue water Navy aspiration. And they're looking westward, too, into the Indian Ocean.
Definitely. The analysis points to China seeking access, or already having it, in places like Gwadar in Pakistan, Djibouti on the Horn of Africa.
Hambantota in Sri Lanka, too, right?
Hambantota, yes. And possibly looking at spots in East Africa, Southeast Asia. It looks like a network.
This string of pearls idea we keep hearing about.
That's the term often used. It suggests a deliberate strategy to build logistical points, potentially allowing them to sustain naval operations far from home.
Okay, so that's the challenge India's facing, this rapidly expanding, increasingly sophisticated Chinese naval presence right in its backyard, essentially.
A very significant challenge.
So let's pivot to India. What strengths does the Indian Navy bring to the table? What are its key assets in this competition?
Well, India certainly isn't starting from scratch. Their aircraft carrier capability is a major strength. They operate the INS Vikramaditya.
Which they bought from Russia and extensively refitted.
Correct. And crucially, they've built their own, the INS Vikrant. It's indigenous, undergoing trials, and should be combat ready very soon.
Having two operational carrier groups, or potentially two, that's a serious capability for power projection.
It is. It provides mobile air power far out at sea. Then there's the underwater dimension.
Submarines.
Yeah.
Always critical on naval strategy.
Absolutely vital. India has nuclear-powered submarines. The INS Arihant is key. It's an SSBN, a ballistic missile submarine.
Meaning it carries nuclear missiles.
Yeah.
For a second strike capability.
Exactly. A credible deterrent. And they're planning to build more SSBNs plus nuclear-powered attack submarines, SSNs. That underwater element really complicates things for any potential adversary.
Okay, so carriers and nuclear subs are big tickets. What else? Our sources mentioned surveillance.
Yes, they're P-8I Poseidon aircraft. These are top-of-the-line maritime patrol and anti-submarine warfare planes.
So they can watch vast areas of ocean and hunt for submarines effectively.
Very effectively. They give India significant eyes and ears over the Indian Ocean. And we shouldn't forget they're surface ships equipped with BrahMos missiles.
The supersonic cruise missile.
That's the one, very potent, on ships and coastal batteries. So they have considerable offensive and defensive punch.
Okay, so a solid set of capabilities. But the analysis wasn't all positive. It also pointed out some significant gaps, some areas where India needs to catch up.
True. One major point is the submarine fleet again, but this time the conventional side.
The non-nuclear ones.
Right. The diesel-electric submarines. The fleet is seen as too small, and many of the boats are aging. There's a real need for more modern conventional submarines.
That seems like a vulnerability, especially with China expanding its presence. Underwater control is key.
It's paramount. And then there's the carrier comparison. India having two is significant, as we said. But China's heading towards potentially 4 or even more carriers in the coming years.
So a numbers gap in a really key area of power projection.
Potentially, yes. And underlying some of these issues are, systemic challenges. Budget constraints often come up.
Not enough money allocated.
Or perhaps not allocated efficiently. And defense procurement processes in India can be notoriously slow. That delays modernization, which is crucial when technology moves so fast.
Right. So Facing these challenges, what's India's strategic game plan? How are they trying to balance things out?
It's definitely a multi-layered approach. The Quad is a big part of it, the quadrilateral security dialogue.
Like the U.S., Japan, and Australia.
Correct. India is a core member, and there's a very strong focus within the Quad on maritime security, keeping the Indo-Pacific free and open.
So using partnerships as a force multiplier.
Exactly. It's a strategic counterweight. But it's not just the Quad. India is also strengthening its own bilateral ties.
With who specifically?
Countries like France, which has a presence in the region, also Indonesia, Oman, the UAE. These partnerships can offer logistical access places for ships to refuel, resupply.
So building their own network, in a way. Countering that string of pearls we mentioned earlier.
That seems to be the logic, yes. Leveraging geography and relationships to create a supportive network.
Okay, beyond alliances, what about technology? Is India trying to find, asymmetric advantages, ways to compete without matching ship for ship?
That's definitely part of the strategy, investing in things like AI for surveillance.
How does AI help?
Well, think about sorting through massive amounts of sensor data, radar, sonar, satellite imagery. AI can potentially detect patterns or anomalies much faster than humans, improve maritime domain awareness.
Okay, makes sense. What else?
Underwater drones are another area for surveillance, maybe even other rules down the line, and advanced missile technology like BrahMos continues to be important.
Finding ways to get more bang for the buck, essentially.
Yeah, you could put it that way. And the analysis keeps coming back to the need to boost that submarine fleet, especially the nuclear attack submarines, the SSNs.
Why the emphasis on SSN specifically?
Because they offer greater speed, endurance, and stealth compared to conventional subs. They can operate further out for longer, posing a more persistent threat. They're ideal for sea control and sea denial.
Got it. And more logistics agreements, too. Places to refuel and repair.
Absolutely essential for sustained presence across the vast Indian Ocean rim. Plus, ensuring those carrier strike groups we talked about are not just operational, but fully combat-ready and deployable.
It sounds like a comprehensive plan, but you mentioned budget constraints earlier. Our sources noted the Navy gets less than 20% of the defense budget.
That figure does come up, yes. And it highlights a fundamental challenge. You can have the best plans, but they need adequate, sustained funding to become reality.
Which really brings us to the bigger picture here. This isn't just about Navy versus Navy, is it?
Not at all. It's fundamentally about influence in the region, securing trade routes, access to resources, and really shaping the future order of the Indo-Pacific.
Yeah, it feels like India's maritime security is directly tied to whether it becomes a genuine global power or remains more of a continental one.
That's a very good way to frame it. The potential is there, the capabilities are growing, the partnerships are forming, but
the urgency is real, given China's pace.
Precisely. The speed and scale of the plan's modernization demand a sustained, focused, and well-resourced effort from India.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive today, we've seen China's really dramatic naval expansion. We've looked at India's strengths carriers, nuclear subs, surveillance, but also its weaknesses like the conventional subfleet and funding issues.
And we've touched on their strategies, the QAD, bilateral ties, asymmetric tech investments.
It leaves us with that central question from the analysis. Is India positioning itself to truly set sail and secure its maritime destiny, or is there a risk of being strategically left ashore?
It's a stark way to put it, but it captures the stakes. And maybe final thought for you, our listeners. Beyond the India-China dynamic, what might be the wider ripple effects of this naval competition? How could it reshape regional stability or even the global balance of power in the long run?
That's definitely something to think about. What part of this discussion stood out most to you? Was there anything particularly surprising? We really encourage you to keep exploring these complex Indo-Pacific dynamics. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.